Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. If you're below rated 1000 rating, you've probably faced this opening multiple times, which is the fried liver attack. In this video, we're gonna take a look with you 3 best ways that you can punish the fried liver attack with a black perspective. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so how we get to the fried liver? It starts e4, e5, the opponent plays knight f3, you play knight 6, the bishop goes to c4, knight f6, and knight to g5. Which means in this case, probably some of you guys right now familiar with what stands for Traxler counterattack, like a bishop c5 move, which God Home Chess has a video about it, and after that people actually played a lot. So basically, bishop c5 is actually looks pretty good at first sight if definitely the opponent takes knight f7, because you got here a pretty nice continuation, and simply white can end up in a huge trouble if he doesn't know what he's doing. You know, black has just pretty good position after some moves. But the thing is that what if your opponent is kind of knowledgeable and he also worked with his fried liver opening, you know? Because rather than knight f7, here there's a bishop f7 check, which basically your king is under attack and you have to move your king, and simply the opponent goes back to bishop b3. And you can see at the end what happened is that like we just lost a pawn and we lost the king safety and we didn't accomplish nothing. So this is a little bit like a drawback of just playing the Traxler counterattack. Other than that, yeah, you can still try for it. But what would be 3 best ways that we can use against fried liver is coming up, which means we're gonna push d5 and e takes d5. You guys got a lot of this sort of similar position a lot in your games. And at this point, we have 3 best continuations. Number 1, b5. Quite interesting move. Which means what we are doing is that the opponent is attacking our knight, but we are responding with counterattack at this moment. Number 2, after e takes d5, it stands for the knight to d4. This is another best continuation that you can try out after e takes d5. And lastly, probably you guys familiar with that, it stands for the knight a5 move, attacking the bishop. 3 best continuations that you can try out. So let's take a look one by one. Let's take a look one by one, which sort of outcomes they can give us. So let's start with b5, because this is pretty interesting move, you know? And in this point, like what sort of moves your opponent might play. According to Engine, here's the best move stands for bishop f1, but you know, this is completely unnatural. If you're playing against the opponent, bishop f1 even will not cross his mind, because at this point you're just taking queen d5, and you can see what's happening is that like his only knight got developed, but your 2-piece got developed and you got much more center, so definitely bishop f1 is not the case at all. What else? Let's just say, how about if our opponent captures our knight? Well, we capture back his bishop, and now what you can see here happening is that there is no that kind of crazy attack to your king is happening, you know? Because we removed the main attacker, that was the bishop on c4, and there is no strong pressure now on f7, which means the next couple of moves for black would be simply you will kick out the knight and you will go for the queen d6, so you can take his c6 pawn. Pretty nice position for black to continue. And after b5, which there is one more option that the opponent can try out, would be, what if he just simply captures our pawn, right? Well, pretty natural move to be played. And after this case, we're gonna take back the pawn with our queen. And at this point, you can see what's happening instead. We are double attacking the bishop and g2 pawn at the same time. So here, kind of the opponent forced to take our knight. Otherwise, if he tries to defend his bishop by playing knight c3, we simply end up being an extra pawn by capturing g2. Also keep in mind, there's pretty interesting trick that white can use. He can play bishop e2, and the idea is that you cannot really take g2 pawn because there's a double attack with our queen and the knight, and if we capture the knight, you can see there's double attack check, and we are ending up losing our rook. For that reason, after bishop e2, the simple continuation you can try out would be just add the defender and do the same idea. But one more time, guys, you're seeing there is no clearly kind of strong attack on your king side. Everything got removed at this point. And lastly, after b5, at this point, the opponent got one more choice, and that is still keeping the bishop on a2 and g8 diagonal, right? Because here, again, we cannot really take the pawn on d5 with the knight. The same idea might be repeated at this time. So knight d5 is still not possible. Rather than that, we go to knight d4, attacking the bishop. We want to attack the bishop. Black will try to play d6, and this is another trick that he's using, because it feels like he's giving the free pawn, but in reality, if you take that, there's like a knight f7 move is coming. So the most simple choice that we can do here is that just remove the bishop. He takes our pawn, because if he takes back with the pawn, we are just extra pawn in the game. So that's why he takes back, and definitely we need to save the queen, not the knight, because we know queen is worse more than the knight. You take the pawn takes back the knight, and now you play h6, which is simply saying hi to the knight, just challenging it some, because if it goes back, still you can develop the bishop, but even better idea would be still to challenge it, because as you can see, you're just making every move with a tempo. If you're enjoying this video so far, I would greatly appreciate it if you take a moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. This will help for the algorithm and for sure the channel's growth. Thank you. And now we go for knight d4 option, because this is another interesting thing that you can try out after e takes d5. According to Lich's database, the top move here being played was such as like playing c3 and the opponent attacking our knight, we attack his knight, he takes our knight, we takes his knight, d takes e5, knight d5, and there are a couple of games and they end up like this sort of position, which I think this is kind of the position. Yeah, white is extra pawn, but you got much more a little bit better development comparing to white. But what kind of surprised me was that after knight d4, another top move besides c3 was being played d6, which means the idea is that again, the opponent giving up the pawn, and if you capture that, like this sort of fork, or the bishop f7 check is coming up, But the thing is that after d6, even though this thread is coming up, we just completely kind of blindly will take the queen d6. Well, you can say, but like, wait a second, did we really miss this idea, or is it something do we have? And you're right, there is something we have, because after queen d6, when the opponent tries to take our pawn on f7 with the knight, we got a queen t6 move, sliding over to c6, and now you can see bishop is under attack. His pawn is also on g2 under attack. And you'll be like, okay, quite interesting, but what if I captures my rook? Well, great thing starts now. Simply gonna take at this point his pawn on g2. He tries to defend his rook, and now we add another attacker to the game, and we are going to trap the queen at this point. The only move the opponent can try would be here, f3, and after f3, simply, we're still gonna take bishop f3, rook f3, knight f3 check, so no matter what, the opponent is forced to give up his queen at this point. Let's go back to that moment, then what would be the best condition here for the white? Is it already losing? It is actually already losing position, because queen g2 is a main threat, and you can see we are going to trap the queen, simply, basically. And in this position, the best move could be like a castling, but after that we got a queen c4, knight h8. Yes, guys, don't worry, you lost a rook, but you're going for another rook. So completely fair, 50-50 stuff is coming. Win-win situation here, that we are ending up having this position. So after knight c2 maximum, your opponent can try to kick out your queen, but still you need to guard the knight, knight c3, and knight a1. I'm pretty sure, guys, if you end up this position, you end up winning the game. Because currently your extra piece, yeah, you can say my knight is in the corner, but do not forget the opponent's knight is also on the corner, which you got here 4 minor pieces comparing to 3 minor pieces on the board. As you can see, after knight f7, the opponent is ending up having a nightmare because we got too much strong attack at this point. But another interesting option he can try would be here, taking that pawn with the bishop f7 check. Still, in this case, black is better, which we move our king to e7. And now you can see if it was black's turn, we can just play h6, remove the knight, and take his bishop. So his bishop needs safety. Bishop goes back to b3, we take the bishop, he takes back, we will say hi to the knight by playing h6, and knight f3, one more time we push that pawn on e4. We need to keep challenging this knight, because it doesn't have too many freedom at this point. And at this point, your opponent might end up playing something knight h4, which correctly, knight g6 check is coming, but you will again slide over your king, and he can play knight c3 by a chance, but this is actually natural, and you will be like g5, and boom, as you can see, his knight got trapped. And now finally we are moving to the third option that you can try after e takes d5, and that sends a mainline move knight a5, which in these variations there are no many tricks, but still black and ending up just a pretty good position after some moves. So bishop gives a check on b5, you block it with your pawn, white takes, and black takes back. And at this moment, we're gonna take with you kind of like three options that white can try out, and all of them are just kind of top moves. So let's start first with the bishop a4, when you attack the bishop and he's moving back. And once this happens, guys, do not worry, you're down the pawn, but in chess we have something called compensation, which means you give up 1 pawn or 2 pawns, but in exchange you're gonna get up some sort of advantage. And here's the advantage for the pawn we are ending up is the quick development. So bishop a4, you see this knight is just not standing well. It was best kind of at the beginning for white. And you'll be like, hey, what's up? And he goes back, you'll do one more time. What are you doing? e4, attacking, challenging this knight. Because this is now main trouble for the opponent that he needs to deal with. Alright, how about if just bishop goes back to e2? The same idea here again you're gonna implement. You need to keep challenging this knight as much as you can. And once this happens, you just go to bishop c5. Again, this gives us the opportunity to play bishop d4 to attack the knight one more time. So let's just say if the opponent tries to castle, you can also castle, because now you don't also have only bishop d4, but actually rook e8 is also possible. That helps you to kind of trap this knight.